Tonight on our Great American panel, he's a Democratic pollster and Fox News contributor. Doug Schoen is here. She's a fellow with Project 21, and Fox News contributor Deneen Borelli joins us. And he's the editor of the National Review. A syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor, Rich Lowry, also joins us.
Hi there.
How are you? Good to be here.
Great.
We are going to talk first tonight about Wikileaks and about particularly Julian Assange, the head of the website, and what ought to happen to him. There's been a big debate about whether or not he ought to in fact be the target of prosecution. What's your sense of this, Doug?
Liz, I don't think this is a partisan issue. This is right and wrong. To release the documents he did, to put our servicemen at risk, to put Afghanis who are cooperating with us at risk is either something that should require prosecution for treason, and at the very least, it's a treasonous hostile act. To compare this to the Pentagon Papers is, to me, inaccurate and indeed blasphemous.
Deneen, do you think the website ought to be shut down?
Well, what they've done is, I mean, I agree with Doug. They need to do all that should be done. I mean, this was an act of treason. Let's hope the Department of Justice does a much better job with this instance than they did with the new Black Panther Party case from the 2008 presidential election. But, you know, all hands on deck to make sure that this doesn't happen again as well, because they had classified information that's worldwide that could be harmful to all people you know, around the world. So,
and the documents that they released, as you all know, actually list specific names of Afghans in particular who've helped us. Isn't that in and of itself a pretty onerous offense and something that ought to be prosecuted?
Well, look, I agree with the analysis of the morality of this act of both my colleagues here. This guy's a first-class creep. He should be condemned and inveighed against in every forum possible. But I don't think you're going to get a treason prosecution against him. I'm not sure you can indict him on anything. Even if you could, getting him extradited is going to be a hugely difficult task. I think as a practical legal matter, you have to go after, with the full force of the law, the leakers. And we have one suspect already. He should be made an example of. The book should be thrown at him, and he should go to jail for as long as possible.
I think we're in a war, Liz, and if we can't go after the person who created the website and basically facilitated the plot, we're in sad shape. So, Rich, I wish...
He just enjoys outflanking me to the right.
This is right and wrong.
Right, exactly.
President Obama is the one who sent the 30,000 troops to Afghanistan, who is trying to prosecute what he has called the good war. This certainly doesn't make that any easier. It makes it a lot tougher.
Let's spin it to the logical conclusion. Would you kill him in an extrajudicial killing? If it's effectively an act of warfare, and it's just a question of right and wrong, and legalities don't really matter.
Rich, I believe in the rule of law. I'm not ready to pass a sentence on him till he goes through a trial.
Says you're not going to be able to get him on treason.
No, that's not. Wait a minute. You can talk about the Espionage Act. I don't think that you can say clearly you're not going to be able to get him. And I think that you've got to lay down a marker here so that people understand it's not freedom of the press.
Go after the people that. I mean, it's great to be on this panel and saying indict him for all these things. As a practical matter, it's not going to happen. You have to go after the leakers as a practical matter. And I agree on, again, this is a reprehensible act. But, Doug, if you're really going to say it's basically an act of war against the United States, follow your logic to its true conclusion.
Yeah,
but you
give
won't.
him a trial.
I think this
Absolutely.
is straw man. Right,
we believe in due process, Rich.
Now,
Still do.
While WikiLeaks has been busy leaking information that's harming our war effort, President Obama himself has been out talking about the economy a lot, and for the first time, really, now mentioning President Bush by name in terms of casting blame. I think we've got a soundbite here to go to.
They haven't come out with a single solitary idea that is different from the policies that held sway for 8 years before Democrats took over. Not a single policy difference that's discernible from George W. Bush. Not one. So what they're really betting on is amnesia.
Now, is this just sort of the act of a desperate man, Rich?
Yeah, it's pathetic. It's all he's got. I mean, his big spending stimulus has failed. About 13% of people actually think it has worked. So he's going to have to get more and more explicit about blaming President Bush. And it's going to get more and more pathetic and unseemly as he goes. I mean, the next thing would be to actually ask George W. Bush to campaign with him so he can have a living embodiment of all the horrors of the Bush years. And it's not going to work because no matter how much he talks about George W. Bush, he is not on the ballot this year.
He knows he's in trouble. Yeah, Obama's got two last cards in his political deck, the Bush card and the race card. Look at what's going on in Arizona. He rammed Obamacare in and through every possible orifice of the American people. It's outrageous. He's not listening to the will of the American people. His polls are dropping. Congress is at, what, an 11% approval rating. He has nothing to run on.
Liz,
and you have Democrats, who don't even want him showing up at their political events.
Let me ask you, Doug, though, but let me ask you a particular question, though. The other thing the president has become very fond of saying is that we, the Republicans, ran the car into the ditch, and he's not going to give us the keys back.
Right.
And every time I hear him say that, I think, does he get that this is democracy? He doesn't get to decide who has the keys. The American people get to decide.
That's exactly the point. And I think in a Democratic election, no surprise that me, who's hardly an apologist for the Obama administration, would not have a problem with comparing the record of George W. Bush with that of the Democrats. And while the Obama record is wanting, as Rich and Deneen articulately suggest, George W. Bush created the problems, created the deficit, reckless spending, and the American people hold him accountable.
That's not true.
Those are just facts.
The financial crisis created the deficit, and
We'll
that was not
correct the
Bush's
record.
fault.
Oh, it sure was, Rich, and you know it as well as I.
More with our great American panel right after the break.